Nobody wins when the family feels.
Let me hop in that car, man. Let me hop in that V, man.
That's where y'all can stop the interview at.
Yellow flag.
All right, man.
Put your head down.
What's up?
Yeah, there you go. Yep. Hey.
That's right, 3 people are dead and 4 others injured after a shooting. It happened at a Boys and Girls Club in New York. This is brand new video from the scene. Officers say that someone drove by and shot out of a car. They say a large crowd has been gathering overnight near the scene. Police are searching for the suspect this morning.
In the corner and all that something, I heard boom. Then I fell in that grass. Just trying to go to the store. Couldn't make it, so.
They told me it was 1 gunshot. That was the one to the arm. When I got to the 6th floor, it was 2 gunshots, 1 in the back.
The Boys and Girls Club. Blackshell is accused of using an AK-47 in that shooting.
Not too far from where he was shot, family and friends gathered to remember 24-year-old Jalen Everett.
The boy could dance his butt off, you know what I mean? You know, he was an artist, he was a rapper, you know? He was just a human. That's all I could say. He was a human being.
Everett was shot near Dewey Avenue Saturday night. He later died at the hospital. Everett was one of 3 that stood trial for the murders of Raquan Manigault, Jonah Barley, and Johnny J.R. Johnson.
The man murdered on East Avenue over the weekend was one of the suspects acquitted in the triple murder outside the Boys and Girls Club almost a decade ago.
Check this out, family. Imagine leaving your local basketball game with your kids at a local Boys and Girls Club. And when you and several others attending the game leave out the rec center front door, suddenly a man hanging out the car comes racing down the street. Out the window is a firearm with his hands, an AK to be specific. He let off dozens of rounds, striking more than 7 people, leaving 3 deceased on the scene. And at this point, all hell break loose, and all family members not the same. If the Justice Department can't get it done, a lot of people will get it done themselves. Here's the thing, family. Apparently, the law couldn't come through on convicting 2 of the 3 victims allegedly involved. And it wasn't evidence, it was based on technicality. Then, some loved ones decided to take matters in their own hands. Some say rightfully so. But by the end of this video, I want you guys to let me know if they was wrong on that. Now sit back and enjoy this in-depth trial of a mass shooting at a rec center back in 2015 to having retaliations almost over a decade later in 2023. So before we get into this one, remember family, I don't give you no angle. I just give you the story. So with that being said, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And we're going to jump right to it. It may just have closed the book on a last man standing involving a 2015 shooting at a rec center. But remember, revenge don't have a date on it. In August of 2015, it was a deadly shooting at a Boys and Girls Club in Rochester, New York.
That's right, 3 people are dead and 4 others injured after a shooting. It happened at a Boys and Girls Club in New York. This is brand new video from the scene. Officers say that someone drove by and shot out of a car. They say a large crowd has been gathering overnight near the scene. Police are searching for the suspect this morning. Live at the breaking news desk, Joshua Cole, 4029 News.
Now, 3 people end up losing their life. Raquan, Jonah, and Johnny. May they rest in peace and loving condolences to their family. But over 5 people were struck, some going to local hospitals on personal transportation. Now it wouldn't be till a month later, but the guy you see on the screen above, family, at the time just 21 years old, Johnny Blackshell Jr. He was arraigned on a separate charge, not at this point connected to the triple homicide on Rochester's southwest side. He was charged for an alleged armed robbery just 2 weeks before that shooting at Lake Avenue convenience store. Blackshell is accused of using a handgun to rob the store of $150 and some cigars. A clerk at the store had identified Blackshell and the weapon, which was recovered from Blackshell's car, along with the clothing allegedly taken from Eastview Mall store on August 24th. Prosecutors said between those 2 dates, on August 19th, Blackshell fired from a car into a crowd outside the Boys and Girls Club on Jeanette Street. Blackshell was accused of fatally taking the life of Raekwon, Jonah, and Johnny.
Federal charges against Johnny Blackshell Jr. are in connection with an alleged armed robbery at a Lake Avenue 7-Eleven convenience store on August 4th. Authorities say a handgun was used in the robbery, where $150 and cigars were stolen. Blackshell is also charged with possessing a handgun found in a vehicle he was driving after two accomplices allegedly stole clothing from a store at Eastview Mall on August 24th. Blackshell is charged under the Hobbs Act relating to the effect of the robbery on interstate commerce.
7-Eleven is obviously a nationwide franchise, so the depletion of the assets, so to speak, or the taking of the assets from 7-Eleven inherently affects interstate commerce.
Federal Magistrate Jonathan Feldman called the weapons charge against Blackshell complicated, as it may be connected to state charges Blackshell faces. Blackshell is charged with first-degree murder in city court in connection with the August 19th drive-by shooting of 7 people on Genesee Street. 3 died and 4 others were wounded as they left a basketball game at the Boys and Girls Club. Blackshell is accused of using an AK-47 in that shooting. Federal prosecutors declined to comment on any connection between the Genesee Street incident and the 7-Eleven robbery.
A lot of the times we'll see an indictment that may include some of the same complained of conduct on the state charge, but under a different theory under a federal law. Brings in the issue of double jeopardy and things like that. And those are some things that we'll look at very closely as the case progresses.
Some believe federal authorities are being more aggressive in their robbery case against Blackshell because of his ties to the Genesee Street murders.
In this particular case, it's not just the robbery of the store, but also the fact that at the time of the crime, one of the perpetrators had a firearm and used the firearm during the robbery. So there are aggravating factors, and Mr. Blackshell has a record that subjects him over here to increased penalties.
Blackshell returns to federal court October 27th. Mike Adine, Time Warner Cable News.
Day 2 of Johnny Blackshell's trial was stopped, and apparently one of the guys that we showed at the beginning, who was unfortunately struck in the crossfire, had ended up testifying as long as others and gave a more in-depth detail on what actually took place the night of that incident.
It was day 2 of testimony in the murder trial of Johnny Blackshell Jr. He's one of 3 men accused of opening fire on a group of people on Genesee Street last August. Time Warner Cable News reporter Seth Voorhees joins us now from the Hall of Justice with a recap of today's proceedings. Seth?
Yeah, today's testimony here began to piece together exactly what happened. Witness after witness describing their experiences, including more than one witness who had actually been shot that night outside of the Boys and Girls Club of Rochester on August 19th of last year. Johnny Blackshell Jr. is accused of firing an AK-47 into a crowd following a basketball game that night. 7 people were shot, 3 of them were killed. Raekwon Manigault, Jonah Barley, and Johnny Johnson. Witnesses today included a Rochester police sergeant who matched up audio and video recordings of the chaotic shooting scene. The most compelling testimony came from those who were there that night. Witnesses who we can't show you, judge's orders, say Judge Douglas Randall ruling no photography of trial witnesses. Well, one witness identified crime scene photos showing the deceased. Others told stories of hearing multiple gunshots, ducking, and then seeing friends lying motionless on the ground. One witness, Anthony Jones, was shot in the back. Another witness, Samuel Jacobs Jr., was cousin to both Manigault and Barley. Jacobs had played in that night's basketball game and then after the shooting used his shirt to try and stop the blood from flowing from a gunshot wound to one of his cousins. Well, this afternoon, video and audio surveillance cameras were played. The clip contains a burst of gunfire and then people scattering. Seconds later, a single shot rings out. People on a crowded street scattering. A forensics expert testified that 29 shots were fired outside of 500 Genesee Street. On a side note, on the prosecution list in this case, 100 witnesses could testify. Blackshell's defense says for jurors, that certainly presents its challenges.
Well, we're certainly fettering that out during their testimony. It's going to be up for the jury to decide issues of credibility and whether or not people can be believed in this case.
Blackshell's attorney, Joe D'Amelio. Now, we heard no comment today from prosecutors who were leaving this case. At one point today, we were told that there might be a possibility of gaining access to that video that was shown in court today. However, the prosecution objected. Judge Douglas Randall reconsidered based on concerns over the fact that there are still two more people who will stand trial separately for murder in this case. So in the end, the media was given allowance to actually go and inspect the video, to watch it, but no photos and no video of that evidence in this case. Testimony in Johnny Blackshell's murder trial will resume tomorrow morning.
Certainly a busy day of testimony. Time Warner Cable News reporter.
Now, Johnny was actually found guilty and was given 3 life sentences. Now we got Johnny out the way. The 2 other people who was allegedly with Johnny, but wasn't the one hanging out the window with the AK. They was allegedly guilty, as we'll later discuss, but apparently they were set free and came to their demise because of it. A little over a year after the incident, on November 6, 2016, Jalen Everett was found guilty by a jury of M1, assault and weapons charges. Prosecutors say that Everett didn't pull the trigger, but was in a car which dozens of shots were fired into a crowd.
After 2 days of deliberations, jurors have reached a verdict in the Jalen Everett murder trial. Time Warner Cable News reporter Micah Dean has been covering this trial. He joins us now from the Hall of Justice with an update. Mike?
Well, Alex, guilty is the verdict on 3 counts of second-degree murder and 3 counts of assault for Jalen Everett for his role in the killing of 3 people outside the Boys and Girls Club in August 2015. Everett was found not guilty on 3 counts of first-degree murder and 2 counts of assault. Everett was convicted in the shooting deaths of Raekwon Manigault, Jonah Barley, and Johnny J.R. Johnson. They were with a group of others who had just left the basketball game at the Boys and Girls Club and were gunned down by a drive-by shooting. 4 others were injured. Now, the jury found Everett acted recklessly, thus the second-degree murder conviction.
It's something, even though I think he deserved first degree, but as long as he was found guilty, he has to know what he done was wrong. The reason I think he should have got first degree is because he initiated the whole thing, the whole attack, but at least he got something.
This trial was obviously a little more challenging in that you've got witnesses coming back in who testified at the first trial, and obviously that's always nerve-wracking for anybody to have to do it more than one time. Certainly the type of evidence we had was not the same. It was a circumstantial case against Mr. Everett. I'm glad the jury was able to parse through all that and come to the decision they did.
I hope this is a lesson to your friends. They all seen this. You guys seen this. Wake up. Learn to love. Why is there so much hate? Why is there so much hate? I yet to understand this.
Johnny Blackshell was convicted earlier this year of first-degree murder for his role. He's serving 3 life sentences. Michael Mathis goes on trial in January. Everett will be sentenced January 6th. He faces 25 years to life in prison. The prosecution will ask that those sentences run consecutively. Alex?
It's Time Warner Cable News reporter Micah Dean at the Hall of Justice.
Now, just a month later, after celebrating, the family would get bad news from the judge that they was throwing the case out based on technicality that one of the jurors was basically being racist.
A jury found Jalen Everett guilty of 3 counts of second-degree murder on November 4th. Now, the presiding judge in this case has set aside that verdict, according to Everett's attorney, Clark Zimmerman. The Monroe County District Attorney's Office said the decision was apparently based upon events allegedly occurring during jury deliberations. In a statement, District Attorney Sandra Dorley said in part, quote, "When the issue was first brought to our attention, we were prohibited from investigating the alleged improprieties due to a gag order which was imposed by the court. More importantly, we were unable to advise the victims' families of today's proceedings. Nothing would indicate that a full and fair inquiry could not have been conducted prior to today's decision. At the very least, a fact-finding hearing with a full and fair inquiry should have occurred. That gag order was lifted Thursday, and that's when the victims' families were informed.
I was shocked. I said, "Are you serious? Are you serious?" I couldn't stop saying, "Are you serious?" And she was feeling the same exact way.
Everett was charged in the drive-by shooting along with 2 other men. Johnny Blackshell was convicted earlier this year of first-degree murder charges. He's serving 3 life sentences. Michael Mathis is expected to go on trial in January. Raekwon Manigault, Jonah Barley, and Johnny J.R. Johnson were shot and killed as they left a basketball game at the Boys and Girls Club. Barley's mother believes it's a little late for a jury issue to come to light.
I asked them individually, "Is this your verdict?" Each one said yes. Now you come back after all this is over to humiliate us and for the judge to be able to say, "Okay, I'm dismissing this whole trial"? What is this, a game?
Richard Barley says he applauds the juror for coming forward with a potential issue. He agrees with his wife this should have been addressed before the verdict was rendered.
There were 4 alternates that could have stepped in and took this one juror's place who was biased or what have you.
Richard Barley says he's angry with Judge Randall, not only his decision to set aside the verdict, but also in the way he presided over the trial.
A lot of the evidence that was in the first trial, they wouldn't allow. We don't know why. We haven't been given any explanation on why that happened. So it's very difficult.
The district attorney's office says it's conducting its own investigation and plans to take whatever action is deemed appropriate. Mike Hedin, Time Warner Cable News.
Then the following month, Michael Mathis will end up going to trial in January of 2018. But before we even get to that, just 3 years later, Jalen Everett had been gunned down in retaliation at a local convenience store in Rochester, New York, because he was acquitted, allegedly. And that must be his neighborhood or something, because he was gunned down at Janice Street again, which is the same street as the recreation center that was hit up. The shooting that happened on Janice Street around 8 p.m. near the intersection of Kirkland Road and Dr. Samuel McCree Way. When officers arrived, they found the victims, all Rochester residents, shot outside Aki Mini Mart.
Now on that breaking news, we've been following a shooting in Rochester. 4 people have been injured. The scene is at the intersection of Genesee Street, Dr. Samuel McCree Way, and Kirkland Road. That's where we find Time Warner Cable News reporter Tara Grimes. She rejoins us now from the scene. Tara, what's the update?
Well, Casey, details are still very limited at this point, but police tell us that the shooting happened just outside the Aki Mini Mart, just across the street from where I'm standing. Police say a 27-year-old man was shot in the upper body and has serious injuries, but they are not considered life-threatening. A 34-year-old man and 2 32-year-old men were shot in the lower body, and we're told all of their injuries are not believed to be life-threatening. Police tell us the victims are all Rochester residents, and all of them were transported to Strong Memorial Hospital. At this time, police say they're speaking to witnesses and reviewing video, including blue light camera video, to find out exactly what happened. They can't tell us how many shots were fired, but tell us there were multiple. They also can't say what kind of gun was used. I did speak to a witness down the street visiting a nearby business who tells me he heard 2 shots and then a few minutes later heard the sirens of first responders. Now we're told that there are no suspects in custody at this time, but we will of course continue to update you on the story as soon as we get more information. Casey?
All right, we look forward to it. Time Warner Cable News reporter Tara Grimes in Rochester for us tonight.
Now, as you can see, that's before the public was well aware that the person identified who was unfortunately the person who lost his life was the guy with one of them who was acquitted of the 2015 shooting at the rec center only feet away.
Not too far from where he was shot, family and friends gathered to remember 24-year-old Jalen Everett.
The boy could dance his butt off, you know what I mean? You know, he was an artist, he was a rapper, you know? He was just a human. That's all I could say. He was a human being.
Everett was shot near Dewey Avenue Saturday night. He later died at the hospital. Everett was one of 3 that stood trial for the murders of Raekwon Manigault, Jonah Barley, and Johnny J.R. Johnson. They were all shot as they left the Boys and Girls Club on Genesee Street in 2015. Everett was acquitted, as was Michael Mathis. Johnny Blackshell was convicted in that case.
No matter how people felt about Jalen, no matter what his past, that's still somebody's son.
His cousin Camille McIntyre grew up with Jalen. She says he was a family man who recently welcomed a newborn son.
Pray for the mother of his children. Pray for his 2 sons, that will grow up without him, because in their eyes, he was their hero. He did everything for those boys.
And while McIntyre believes he may have been targeted for the crime he was acquitted of, she asked the community to handle hate differently.
No matter your anger, no matter how you feel, no matter if you think it's karma, we all have some type of karma, but nobody deserves to be snatched out like this.
At a briefing with reporters, Interim Rochester Police Chief LaRon Singletary asked the community not to draw on any speculation about the motive of the homicide, adding Everett's death is still very much under investigation and is asking for no one to take matters into their own hands.
What we want to be able to do is focus on the task at hand. We want to be able to investigate what occurred yesterday on Dewey Avenue. And for those individuals who believe that they maybe want to become involved in future acts of retaliatory violence, let us handle it. Let the police department do its job, make the arrests, and do so accordingly.
A message McIntyre echoes.
We have to come to a place where we handle our anger different. The first thing we do is we pick up a gun, because, the street code is you live by it, you die by it. But we have to figure out how to do it better.
In Rochester, Andrew Freeman, Spectrum News.
As you heard in that news clip, Michael Mathis was acquitted as well. And that's because the judge decided that Mathis had a mistrial, and he walked out the courtroom as a free man.
Let me hop in that car, man. Let me hop in that V, man. That's where y'all can stop the interview at.
Yellow flag.
All right, man. Put your head down.
What's up?
Yeah, there you go. Yep. Hey.
But with Everett losing his life, Johnny serving 3 life sentences, it seemed as if, though, Michael would be the last one standing. And apparently, that would come to a soon end, because in February of 2023, he would lose his life as well. And just like Everett charged, no one would be charged for the demise of him as well. Mathis, who is now 25 years old, was found with multiple gunshot wounds at the parking lot on East Avenue and North Union Street. He was rushed to Strong Memorial Hospital, where he unfortunately passed away. RPD say they have no suspects in custody.
The man murdered on East Avenue over the weekend was one of the suspects acquitted in the triple murder outside the Boys and Girls Club almost a decade ago. The police won't say if revenge for the Boys and Girls Club murders was the motive.
They say, though, it is possible. But they also say it's possible it was a simple argument that was settled with a gun. Police say Michael Mathis was murdered in a parking lot on East Avenue late Saturday night. Chief Investigative Reporter Berkeley Breen confirmed it's not the first time someone has tried to kill him. Burke?
Deanna, since he was found not guilty in the triple murder outside the Boys and Girls Club, Michael Mathis has been stabbed, shot at, and Saturday night killed.
Michael Mathis was shot and killed in the parking lot at East Avenue and Union Street. Police don't think Mathis or the shooter had come from any of the East End bars. One of the people Mathis was accused of killing outside the Boys and Girls Club in 2015 was Johnny Johnson. I spoke with his mother on Zoom today.
And the fact that it's Michael Matthew will never negate the fact that there will be another and another, just like there was from my son, Johnny Ray Johnson, because there's a failure on the part of this country. This current White House is working, but it is not important enough to them to stop the gun violence that is running rampant in our country.
We back, my brother back home, we back. In 2016, the Mathis family celebrated after Mathis was found not guilty in the triple murders. 3 years later, Mathis survived a stabbing in a bar in Henrietta, and the attacks continued. There was an attempt on Michael Mathis's life right here on Dewey Avenue in 2020, but the bullets from the drive-by shooting missed him and hit an innocent bystander, killing him. That victim was Dakota Podlaski. The shooter was Jeremiah Barley, the brother of one of the 3 victims of the Boys and Girls Club murders. Since then, we haven't heard about other acts of violence against Mathis until Saturday night.
This thing will touch, and it will continuously touch everyone and anyone, because this is how sickening it's getting.
Another one of the Boys and Girls Club suspects who was found not guilty was murdered in 2019. Police say they don't have any suspects in the Mathis murder in custody. Deanna?
Crazy, family, because out of the 3 people that was allegedly involved, one of them serving 3 life sentences and 2 of them is no longer here. And remember, it may not happen the next day, it may not happen the next year, but it seems as if though they get back and definitely came with their name on it. Because remember, age don't have a date on it. Family, I gotta know how y'all feel. Do you think this was rightfully so? Or did the Justice Department simply fail these families and everything is up in the air? Let me know how you guys feel in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until then, I'll catch you guys on the next one.